The president has devastated public media at home, and now he's taking his campaign of retribution against everything journalism across the pond, zeroing his sights in on the granddaddy of all public broadcasters, the BBC. What does this mean for the BBC's future? Does Trump actually have a case? Could the BBC really be on the hook for $5 billion? I'm William Padmore, and this is Media Watch. In November of 2025, British outlet The Telegraph dropped a bombshell, a leaked internal memo from the BBC written by this guy, Michael Prescott, a former journalist and advisor to the BBC's editorial guidelines and standards committee. Prescott's memo reads like every conservative critique of news and public broadcasting you've ever heard in the last 10 years. It alleges the BBC favors a restrictive, ideological approach to gender diversity issues, covers transgender issues in a way that's overwhelmingly supportive of the procedure while downplaying controversy surrounding the issue, and that the BBC Arabic posted stories too deferential to Palestinian perspectives in its Middle East reporting. If any of this sounds familiar, it's because it is. The most direct parallel being Yuri Berliner and his now infamous essay dissing some aspects of how NPR reports the news. The difference? Prescott's memo is causing an international incident. Now, the allegation you've probably heard the most of from this memo is this. A while back, British documentary series Panorama aired a selectively edited speech from Donald Trump on January 6th, 2020. Yes, that January 6th.
We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Now, here's the issue. That first clip, the one with the two parts of Trump's speech spliced together, well, those two sections happened 50 minutes apart from one another, almost an hour. And look, as a working journalist, I will say it is common to shorten long speeches down to bite-sized clips that are more manageable for an audience. I mean, presidents ramble, governors ramble. That guy you're trying to get a comment from outside the ice cream store where the shooting just happened, he rambles. Editing is normal. But a 50-minute gap between clips used to imply a specific meaning, especially on January 6th, that's a bit of a stretch. In his memo, Prescott argues that that clip was so egregious in how it was edited and what it implied that it actually crossed over from bad news judgment into an actual ethical breach. After the leak became public, the Trump administration was predictably furious. They threatened to sue the BBC for no less than $1 billion, with Trump himself saying he could push it to $5 billion. He's also demanding a retraction and an apology.
The president has made it very clear that this is a leftist propaganda machine that is unfortunately subsidized by British taxpayers, and he thinks that's extremely unfortunate for the great people of the United Kingdom and Great Britain. And I think that the president was deeply concerned by the editing, the purposeful and dishonest editing of his speech.
The fallout inside of the BBC has been brutal. Several top editors resigned, including the head of news. The BBC's chair, Samir Shah, this guy, even writ that apology letter to the White House, although he did make it clear in that letter that the BBC wasn't going to pay Jack Diddley. But if Trump decides to sue, could he actually win? No, probably not. Look, here's the brass tacks, and before we go any further, I am not a lawyer, but I have been listening to people with more legal expertise than me, and here's the basic breakdown. Number one, the jurisdiction is kinda shaky here. The documentary itself never actually aired on US airwaves, rather it was available via streaming, so yeah, that gets kinda complicated. Number two, actual malice is pretty darn tough to prove in a defamation case. case, legendarily so. He'd have to prove the BBC knew it was being misleading in the edit at the time, and that it did it on purpose with malicious intent. Also, Trump is a public figure, so yeah, good luck with that. Number 3, the damages are cartoonish. I mean, $1 billion for a bad edit, really? But honestly, winning probably wouldn't even be the point. Now, historically, Trump's lawsuits against the media have been less about actual verdicts and more about intimidation and retribution. He sued the New York Times for reporters and Penguin Random House for $15 billion over reporting about The Apprentice, the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion over reporting related to the Epstein letter, and Disney ABC did end up paying about $1 million in legal fees and donating another $15 million to his presidential library after George Stephanopoulos mischaracterized him as a rapist. He is actually a sexual abuser, not a rapist, different charges. Now, the pattern here is pretty clear. Use the threat of costly litigation to chill newsroom coverage. Most journalists don't want to be the reason their probably already strained newsroom is eating a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit, even if it's a frivolous one. Supporters of Trump say, good. They argue the media has spent years maliciously attacking him and should be more cautious. Critics say the opposite. These lawsuits will chill journalism, making coverage safer, sanitized, and deferential. Trump hasn't actually sued the BBC yet, but the damage is already done. The whole incident has given energy to a section of UK conservatives who, like their US counterparts, believe public media is woke, biased, and not worth taxpayer money.
People talk about election interference. What the BBC did was election interference. If you put yourself in Donald Trump's shoes, I think you'll understand why, when I had a chat with him on Friday, he made his feelings on the subject known to me.
Alarms! Alarms! Update, update, update. Wouldn't you know it, as soon as I get ready to hit publish on the latest video, Trump drops the big one. It turns out, as of a few hours ago, he is in fact suing the BBC, and not for $1 billion, not for $5 billion, $10 billion. Talk about upping the ante. Well, some sources are reporting $5 billion, other sources say $10 billion. I'm going off the New York Times, which puts the number at $10 billion. Either way, it's a lot of clams, and much, much more than the initial $1 billion figure that was floated at the beginning of all of this. According to Politico, Trump is filing the lawsuit in Miami, and he's arguing that that 50-minute gap between those two clips was in fact malicious, so much so that a lawsuit is required. So there you go. As for the documentary not actually airing on US airwaves, well, Trump's lawyers have an answer for that too. They argue that, and stay with me, this is going to get kind of wild, they argue that there are at least 2 websites in the entire internet that have instructions on how to watch the documentary via a VPN. Now, will this gambit work? I mean, who knows? The president's lawyers are very hit or miss on a competency level, so it's kind of a coin toss. I mean, legal experts would probably say that there is no case here, but again, look at the extractions he got out of other media corporations in similar lawsuits. Now, it might be quite a lift for the president's lawyers, but it is important to remember that this prolongs a very embarrassing period for one of the world's largest and most storied public broadcasters. Now, as of me recording this, the BBC hasn't officially responded to Trump's lawsuit, but that's where things stand right now. All right, update over.
And the timing for all of this couldn't be worse. The BBC's funding model is up for a vote again in 2027, and critics do want to use that moment to push for defunding. And look, I would love to say that an institution as prestigious and respected as the BBC would never be defunded. They said the same thing about NPR, and look where we are now. A big thank you to everyone who's been watching and commenting and subscribing. You don't know how much it means to me. Please do not forget, if you haven't already, to press that subscribe button. It does a lot for the health of the channel. All right, I'm William Padmore. This is Media Watch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.